I saw, I don't know if y'all saw this, it was an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, and she was interviewing Kamala Harris because she had run into Kamala in a restaurant or something. I may get the details wrong. But Ellen was talking to her and saying, oh, everything that's going on in the world right now, I think she meant primarily politically, is so disheartening and so forth. And Kamala made the comment that we have to be joyful warriors. And Ellen was completely in love with this sentiment. And I heard it, and I had a very different reaction to it. And I wondered, did y'all see that interview? Or
I didn't see the interview. I think I read an article about it after the fact.
I mean, the phrasing hits me as religious. I don't know that I have an automatic and negative reaction to it, but it hits me as a religious view.
It feels a little that way.
Yeah.
For me, it's something else, though. How about you, Mandisa? Did you see that?
I haven't. I don't really watch daytime TV, so I
didn't either. It was just on
the generation forever.
Right.
But it's very interesting. That kind of goes back to sort of how religion is so tied into the Black community, where, anything that is perceived as being like, well, there's a way to, there's a way to fight. I mean, I am all for tact, but, to be these always happy-go-lucky all the time, and I'm not saying that that's what she's insinuating, but I can see how, you could raise an eyebrow, like, wait a minute. You're in politics, you're kind of, you kind of have sort of a privilege there, because privilege shouldn't only be associated with, white males. Right. To a certain extent, there are many people who benefit from a sense of privilege. And so she may not have to deal with certain things on a level where she has to be angry. So I can see how that can rub someone the wrong way.
Yeah. My thought was, I can see a warrior being fair and ethical and informed, rational, empathetic, but I feel no joy in this war that we're in right now, this political war that I feel like we're in right now.
Not at all, nothing,
And so I just found that odd, and the idea, Ellen has a following, the idea that people will be like, oh, well, I'm going to approach this with a joyful attitude. I just thought, that's really not, I don't feel like that's the direction we need to go. I feel like it needs to be full of empathy and rationality and being ethical, but joy just didn't strike me right.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a little bit, and it's like, okay, on the one hand, it almost seems like she was minimizing the toll this takes on people.
Toll is a very good word.
And on the other hand, I was thinking, okay, it could be terrible advice because people who go into this with this joyful spirit can have that joy ground into ash right along with Sarah Huckabee Sanders' eyes. And
it's the souls of the joyful warriors ground up into your smoky eyes.
I mean, having actually, been a warrior on battlefields before, I can tell you I wasn't particularly joyful. I was usually slightly pissed off most of the time.
It's kind of interesting that you talk about it in terms of like actually being on a battlefield. It's like I remember obviously Tolkien, right, the author, he was military, and so he had seen some pretty horrid things. Right. And I remember when I was younger, like reading for the first time the Rohirrim story of the riders, right, and how there was this weird battle description where they went out into battle and they're like horsemen with their swords and they're killing all these people, and the book says something like they were singing as they slew, and so they were like singing these war songs, and so it was like this weird sort of joyful killing. It was like just strange to read that. I mean, I understand it was like a cultural thing that he's describing, and that there have been cultures that subscribe to things like this. Yeah. But it was still weird to read because you were reading all these perspectives on the characters that were going to go into battle, and some of them were afraid, and some of them were more brave, and some of them were more like, I don't care what happens to me, it's like about this larger thing. he had all these different perspectives, but it was like that was a unique perspective in the book of these people who were like killing and joyful about it. And it was just kind of an interesting, I remember it striking me as like, wow, that's kind of creepy actually.
Right.
You know, it's like really
see,
scary.
It is. It's creepy. It's not really an appropriate, at least in my mind, it doesn't go together. It's like,
I mean, now they were talking, I'm talking about people actually killing people. So it's like,
that's
with joy. It's like, oh, whoa.
Right, because it's like ranch dressing on ice cream or something. It just doesn't quite go, but
like you might be going a little overboard with this.
Yeah, and I mean, I see some of that as, you know, that sort of singing in battle and everything is part of like the ritual that helps people cope with what
Get
they're
them
doing.
amped up.
Sure, yeah, that was their thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that could, but it's not like
I can see how though if I was on the other side of that would be unnerving. Like if I was an army on the other side, and they're coming at me and they're just like singing away and like swinging swords. And it's like these guys seem way too happy to be running to their deaths or killing folk. You know, it's
a little weird.
Yeah. So I mean, it is an odd juxtaposition. I would say that, you know, she probably, my guess, I don't even know, how would I know what she meant? But I mean, my first assumption would just be that she's saying, you know, keep a good attitude. But I don't know.
Yeah, right.
well, it kind of reminds me of like in Norse mythology or Norse
Exactly that.
thought, you know, the Vikings went into battle thinking, okay, you know, if you're fearless and you acquit yourself well in battle, even if you die, you're assured of a seat in Valhalla.
The Valkyries will come and collect you, and it's you die in glory. It was a glorious death.
You'll be drinking with the gods in Valhalla tonight. You know, so it's all good.
And you're right. It is a way to kind of get people into battle.
Yeah.
You know, like this is, you promote as a culture that this is a glorious like hero's death and that you will be exalted for it. And in a weird way, I mean, even though they were just like, you know, this was just their war theme. When you look at things like terrorists, you know, like what is it, the bombers, the suicide bombers. I mean, that's kind of their thing, is that this is some kind of a glorious act.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not willing to go that far for politics. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, you know, but it would depend. I mean, I think that, you know, depending on how desperate people would get, I could see saying that there's a greater cause that I would walk into a building and take it down for. I mean, I wouldn't say that could never reach that point where I know that something is necessary and it would result in my death, and yet I feel that there's a cause greater than me that this would be worth doing. I think that could be legitimate, but it depends on what you're fighting and what you know. It's not for 72 virgins. It would be more than that.
That's what being in the armed services is all about, right,
Well,
Jen? I mean, you're willing to die for something.
Well, I mean, ultimately, we don't train
You don't
the idea that we're going
but
to,
you know, it's always a
die.
possibility.
Right. The idea is, it's kind of like what Patton was saying. Well, it's exactly what Patton was saying. It's like your job is not to die for your country. It's to give the other poor son of a bitch the opportunity to die for his.
Yeah, but still, there's an understanding there that it could go the other way, though.
Yeah. And there are people who make sacrifices on the battlefield every day, knowing that they're going to lose big pieces of themselves or they're going to die, but they do it generally not for some political ideal. It's usually for the guy sitting next to him.
But like if a prisoner in a concentration camp had like armed himself with explosives and gone into the headquarters of, you know, Dachau and blown that to shreds, I don't think anybody would say, oh, that's a wacko.
No,
you know, that's
oh, no, not at all.
Right. So, I mean, there's things that I think for some folks would be worth doing it for that I would probably endorse, that I would say, you know, good job. That was pretty brave. But that, you know, it's just, like I said, it's a personal metric. This is a personal standard. Right. So I'm not judging everybody, but I'm not going to do it for an afterlife.
Yeah. Right. But if there is an afterlife, I would like it to be Valhalla, because that sounds way cooler.
Of course. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, you just have to die a gruesome death.
Right, get hacked to death, and then you live.
There is that. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.